Today's guest, we have costume designer for the film Hamnet, Małgosia Turzanska, and we're going to talk all things Hamnet today and also get to know Małgosia a little bit, going back just a hair. So I'm really excited to just dive in and talk all things Hamnet today. Welcome to the show, Małgosia.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Thank you. Okay, so Małgosia, you haven't been on the show yet with me before, so what were you like as a kid?
I think obnoxious, and I think I still am. That's my first response, but also very creative, which I still am.
Nice. What do you why would obnoxious come like, what in what ways? What does
Um,
that come to mind?
I think this is my Polish guilt and national self-criticism comes into play here. But I think I was hard-headed, um, and yeah, let's leave it there. But also creative.
Yeah, but, even that's honestly a really good trait. It's one of those things where, my strength is my weakness kind of thing, where it's like so in this industry, I think you probably need a little bit of that, like, hard-headed or thick skin or,
Mhm.
you know, being willing to take on tough things and tough projects.
Mhm.
Wouldn't you say that that's kind of like a strength as a
Definitely.
weakness?
But I actually I don't know if I am thick-skinned actually because
Mm,
I'm extremely emotional, and
mm,
my feelings are very like shallow. So if I get touched by something, I cry, I kind of respond in time. I don't have a problem with accessing my feelings. So I don't know if I'm thick-skinned, but I'm definitely hard-headed. So yeah, it's here.
so you didn't cry in a day on Hamnet at all then?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Um, so what was your path to costume design?
I always loved drawing. I always loved reading and writing. And so I didn't know actually when I was growing up, I didn't know where this was going to go. I didn't know if I was going to be an artist or a writer or how those two would combine. And I honestly didn't know that costume design was a job. It
Mhm.
just never occurred to me that this was a career path.
Yeah.
And when I was in high school, I had a chemistry test that I hadn't studied for, and so I did not go to school, and instead went to the movies because it was a cold day. So I went to the movies instead, and it was Almodóvar's Kika that was playing, and I had never even heard of Almodóvar, I don't think. And this was the first time that first of all, the movie blew me away, but
Mhm.
this was the first time that I realized the costumes were costumes. I was like, this is not clothing. This is not someone created this. Someone took this into their hands and made this. They didn't go to the store. They didn't come to set wearing this. And so there was a light bulb suddenly that opened up. Um, but initially, I actually thought I was going to be a production designer rather than a costume designer, or do both.
Yeah.
And I had the privilege of working for Agnieszka Holland when I was a student at in Prague, where I went to study costume and set design. And I was her PA on a set of a movie called Janosik. And I got that job by pure luck because a friend of mine from school, an actor, he got cast as the main part. And very kindly he brought me up to her and said, "Oh, there's this Polish girl. She speaks Polish. She speaks Czech. She speaks English. She wants to be in the costume department." And so I didn't get into the costume department, but I was her PA, and it was on that movie that I was like, "Yes, costumes are a human scale. This is what I can focus on, and production design is so grand, and I think my brain just doesn't work that way." So I was very grateful that I could test it very early on
Yeah.
and just focus on costumes.
Wow. I love that you this started out as a chemistry test you weren't ready for. And you're like, "Well, I'm gonna go do this instead." And
Yeah.
that actually, like, it's so interesting in life where sometimes that it can end up a really good pivot that you do,
Yeah.
and then
And
sometimes you're like, "Uh-oh, why did I do
yeah,
that?"
and it wasn't it wasn't even that I wasn't ready for it. I was just like, this is not how my brain works. This is never going to be my career path. Which is why I think it's so great to have those entry level jobs on movies, because then
Yeah.
you get to figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are
Yeah.
and where you belong.
Yeah. Oh, that is a really cool story. So how did then you get attached to Hamnet? I know you have several films in between the one you just talked about and Hamnet, but how did you get to Hamnet in particular?
So I went to NYU to Tisch School of the Arts here in New York, and I was in the costume department, and Chloe went to the film department, and we did cross paths, and we I was actually supposed to design her first feature songs that my brother taught me,
Mhm.
and it then pushed, fell apart for a while, then reconstituted itself, and then I could no longer do it. So that, that didn't happen. And so when I heard about Hamnet, we lost touch for years. But when I heard about Hamnet, I had read the book at that point and absolutely loved it. So I reached out to our common friend, to actually a producer, Molly Asher, who produced Nomadland and a couple of the previous movies. And I just begged her to put my name in the hat. Molly was not involved in Hamnet, but very kindly pushed my name forward. And I made a lookbook just based on the book. Because at that point there was no script, or I had no access to the script at
Yeah.
least. So I made a very kind of an emotional response to the book and sent it over, and Chloe responded to it very openly, and that was it. That was my leg in, and I'm so thrilled that it worked.
Wow. What were some of those images you selected for your emotional response?
So I always start from here rather than from the outside of the story. And so there was a lot of nature, there was a lot of
Mm.
people or women especially in nature, and then the contrast of nature and cities. And it was not period at all. It was there were some period images in the end of it, but it was mostly just kind of contemporary visions of nature and culture, and and also trying to understand who Agnes is.
Mm.
So there was the textile sculptures of Magdalena Abakanowicz, who's this incredible Polish artist, Mrinalini Mukherjee, who does these knotted textile, both of them, fiber arts. There was one that was an interesting one. There was an eye, a close-up of an eye with a broken blood vessel, which then when I got Fiona Crombie's lookbook, she also had that eye, a
Oh,
different
wow.
image, but also of an eye, and we just saw it, and we're like, oh yes, we are meant to work together.
Yes.
Even though that was not really there. Um, so yeah, just kind of images that were somehow emotionally loaded and connected to Agnes, to nature, and then to the despair and grief and lack. And there was also, because Will grows up in a family of a glove maker, there was also the idea of a glove as a
Mm.
barrier, and then the bare hand in Agnes's realm, the direct touch that she can touch you and see you, see, into your life, your brain, your mind, um, and see you within the world. And so her like directness, and then his family, especially like the glove, the barrier.
Right.
And so I think that's the attraction that he saw in her, this directness, this like barrier-less being, this creature. So those were there. And then some portraits. I started initially the my Elizabethan research just looking at images of people, just at portraits of people,
Mm.
because there's we have a little bit of an idea of the period as a stilted and very
Mhm.
stiff time because of the types of imagery that we have access to. And so I wanted to find the human side of it. So whenever there was something that was a little more like looser or human or more contemporary looking, so I put some of those there. But that was more or less that was it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's uh, thank you for breaking that down because I think when we talk, emotional response to something through images, it's really hard, at least it's hard for me, to describe to somebody what that means to do.
Yeah,
Like, if you were to sign that to somebody. And so that was really helpful. So you're answering questions like, how did it make you feel? How did it,
yeah,
what images did it conjure up in your head that aren't necessarily, clothing related?
exactly.
Just yeah.
And sometimes, very honestly, sometimes, most of the times, I actually don't know why the images I am attracted to. There's something, excuse me, something subliminal.
Yeah.
And so I learned to just trust my gut on that. And if I am,
Mm,
if the image is calling, then that means that there's something there. If you're thinking about the story enough, then your brain is already doing some work that you are not yet aware of.
yeah.
And so then when I start working on the costumes, I go back to that initial response and to those initial images, and suddenly it's like, oh, that's why this was there. That's why this was there. And
Yeah.
suddenly it gels into the costumes.
Yes. Okay. So speaking of, the symbolic imagery you use within your designs is beautiful. How did you arrive at the simplicity of the look from afar, but then that metaphor of the details as you move in close?
So it was because it is, we removed very quickly with Chloe, we removed the historical persona aspect of it. So we were never making a movie about William Shakespeare and Anne Hathaway. We were making a movie about Will and Agnes, these two characters that were almost archetypal. And so I knew from the beginning that it was going to be very, very simple and very accessible
Mm.
and kind of not standing in the way of the story. I wanted to make sure that the period especially was not creating a boundary between our characters and us
Mhm.
as audience members. And so I did a deep dive into research, which is one of my favorite things, and I love research. But I wanted to make sure that I was very literate in it, but tried to focus on the garments and on shapes that served our story rather than the other way around, like to stuff our story into the period. And so the clothing that Agnes is wearing, it's all correct. She's not wearing any padding. She's not wearing bum rolls nor anything like that. It's very, very simplified, but it's perfectly fine. Um, but the way she wears it is kind of practical and raw, and she can like hike up the skirt and be in the woods and be in the dirt and move around easily. So the clothing is not standing in her way.
Mm.
Um, and then with her, it was mostly about the color and the textures. So the reds were her whole color journey started with this like fresh pumping blood and this like undeniability of life and nature. And when Will sees her, he just like cannot look away because she's this ball of color and brightness and life. And as she goes through the story, the colors rust a little bit, then they turn into like a scabby, grayish, brownish, purplish hues. And then as we go towards the very end, the blood starts pumping again. It's not as bright as at the beginning, but there is some blood flow happening.
Mm.
But in terms of textures, I wanted to make sure that her connection to nature was there in some way. And so she's mostly wearing linens throughout. So she is wearing a plant most of the time.
Yeah.
And actually, the first bodice that she wears is made of bark cloth. So it is literal wood. And when you see it in a close-up, you see the wood fibers on it. And it was living and breathing with her. And just, she's at this the base of this tree made of a tree herself, which was again not period accurate at all. This is sourced from Uganda by a German company, completely not connected to Tudor or Elizabethan fashion, but it just seemed so right for us for this story. Um, and then as we move away from that, she loses the wood as is, but her bodices always have
Mm.
a little bit of an embroidery that is kind of reminiscent of bark or the, little veins. There's like always something happening on the texture. Um, so she's kind of like we still feel the pulsing life.
Yeah.
And then when she's in her like leanest moments, the bodice that she's wearing looks like a combination of a scab and dried bark. So that was the like the sad moment. Yeah, so that was the textures.
That's amazing, and I haven't used bark cloth before. Is there a treatment you have to do with it in order to be able to use it or no?
So I discovered it when we were shooting Green Knight a few years ago, which it's a medieval fantasy tale, but I decided to go vegan because our director and producer were vegans, and so I thought let's take away fur and leathers and go somewhere else. And so I was looking for replacement leathers that were not, you know, leather and plastic,
Uh-huh.
and I found bark cloth, and I'm so in love with this textile, or it's not even textile, it's I don't know what to call it.
Yeah.
And so basically it's the fiber that is underneath the bark of a tree and over like between the bark and the trunk of the tree. And
Mhm.
so you remove it in like large planes, but some of it is too skinny, some of it is, almost see-through, so you have to piece it together. Um, but we used it on Green Knight, we used it in a few iterations, and so some of it was just as it was, just plain, which looks almost like felt.
Wow.
And then some of it I rubbed baby oil and paint into, and that was the Green Knight's giant cloak was made of that, and so then it looks more like traditional leather. Um, and here on Agnes, the red was just painted, so it wasn't softened with any fat nor grease, but it was just painted red. So it retained that like the fibrous, the woody
Yeah.
woody aspect. But it's a beautiful, beautiful textile or whatever
Yeah,
it
whatever
is.
you wanna call it, whatever category it
Yeah,
goes in. Wow, that's really amazing. And it you're right, it provides that texture, that realness, that rawness to the
yeah,
character when the audience may not even directly perceive it, but they perceive it
exactly.
in their subconscious. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
so both the production designer of Fiona Crombie and your costume designs speak to generational strongholds of brokenness and abuse. Will you
Yeah.
walk us through some of your details in your designs for William in particular that reflect that underlying thematic element?
Yeah, that was something that was very important to me, that it doesn't disappear. It was an
Mhm.
important part of the book and of the script for me, that this is a family, the Shakespeare family in our telling, that lives with this incredibly abusive person, and you just never know where the blow is going to come from. You just never know what's going to make him explode in anger. And so I was so mad at Mary, the mother, that she's not protecting her. She's not standing up to him. She's not fighting back. But but I was wondering, what do you do if you choose not to fight back, verbally or physically? How do you protect your family? Because obviously she is a mother and she wants her children to be safe, and she understands what's happening. So one thing was color, and this household is very dark and very monochromatic. And so all of the kids are on a grayscale. The costumes are on a grayscale. And I was thinking this is a kind of a camouflage protection, that they could blend in and not provoke, not stand out too much.
Wow.
which William breaks out from that a little bit. Um, but the second part of it was the padding and quilting. And so I was looking at sportswear, actually it's sports padding from like 1910s and 20s. For whatever reason, that was the time that kind of worked for me. And obviously in Elizabethan clothing, there already is a lot of the padding built in, so it worked together nicely. But all of the kids' clothing has a little bit of a cushioning to it. And it was, I was just thinking that Mary builds that into their clothing to protect them in case if they get hit, that there's a little bit of cushion. So, she can this way just protect them that little bit. And so William, when we see him first, he is wearing a quilted doublet. But it is quilted not in a geometric like straight way. The lines are a little bit organic and a little bit reminiscent of, like almost like a drawing of a river.
Mm.
um but also there was a piece that I found during the research that I fell in love with. It was a toothpick on a necklace that John the father is wearing. It looks like a claw, and apparently people in the era had used these like silver or gold toothpicks as jewelry. They were often encrusted with rubies or slightly ornamental, and you could just after dinner use it. um but as a shape, it was so violent and so beautiful.
Mm.
And so I imagine that the father throughout Will's whole life took this little toothpick and just like did these little picks at him, because we see him constantly just like jab at his son. And so there's a jerkin that he wears that has it is actually laser scratched leather, and it looks almost like an underside of a mushroom, that it has a little bit of that uneven scratch texture. And so I was imagining that it started from that it was, you know, just like metaphorically the father's little cuts. But then as we go further into the story, he is Will is providing those little jabs for himself. He is starting to turn on himself, and he's scared he's becoming a violent man. He's scared he's not enough. We see him frustrated with himself. And so when he is leaving for London for the first time, he wears this shell of a doublet, this thick, thick gray leather, which has the traditional Elizabethan pinking. But for me, it was the little slashing. But for me, it was kind of an emotional arc, starting from the little scratches going into the slashes. And then after Hamnet's death, he is wearing a doublet which has just gashes. There's like the leather is completely like moving on him. There's
Mm.
strips of leather when we see him rehearsing Hamlet with the two actors. You see the leather pieces just kind of writhing on his back, and in this uncomfortable, to me, very powerful way. He's just like, his frustration and his pain is at least to me there. And then it culminates in his final costume, which is the ghost, where he is in a sheet covered with broken clay. And finally, we see him wash it off at the very end and break down and finally cry. So that through line, which I hope it works, but to me,
Yeah.
emotionally, it made sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. There's something interesting, I think, that happens. I don't know if it was intentional or not, because sometimes I know out of the artist hand, sometimes you're doing something, you're like, "Oh, I didn't even realize I did that." Like, when you see the
Yeah.
finished product. So I don't tell me if this was intentional or not, but I see such a parallel between like your designs and interpersonal relationships. So like what how you were describing where you guys landed on not being so like you're squashing the story into the designs of the Elizabethan or
Mhm.
Renaissance era. Um, like it's more vague, not you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
just
yeah.
kind of like
So
not
just
overly
subtle.
detailed. And then you
Mhm.
move in and you see the details.
Yeah.
And that to me feels like humans. Like when like we just see
100%.
somebody at the coffee shop and we're like, I don't know them. It's just it's a human. And then when you get to know that person, you see their scars, their wounds, their hurts, their history, their triumphs, their
Yeah.
victories. And so was that something that was intentional also relating to the interpersonal relationships, or is that something that you're like, "Oh my gosh, I that's also another awesome byproduct."
I think that is more like that.
Yeah.
And also having, these two incredible, I mean, all of our actors were incredible, but especially Jesse and Paul, you don't want to stand in the way of their scope. They're so incredible.
Yeah.
So I do love costumes that are subtle, that speak quietly, that don't shout, and that you get to, as you're watching it, gradually you get the information. So I do love that. But it's also just them, like
Yeah.
it's them.
That's so amazing. Um, okay, what about this project was a new challenge for you?
Um, I guess it's like every project, everything is new. I try to do films that are new challenges because I like a challenge.
Mhm.
So, being in the period and not being overwhelmed by it was one thing. And just making sure that we're not swayed by both the period and the historical characters and just kind of keeping to our own story.
Mm.
Um, but also, it was my biggest project to date. So it's always, it always comes with a slew of new challenges.
Yeah.
And I have to say that I had like such an incredible team. And it was as smooth as you can imagine. It was truly my favorite process to date. But I to get personal, my dad passed away while we were shooting. And so processing grief while making a movie about processing grief it was mostly a blessing, actually. I wanted to say a blessing and a curse, but that's not true. It was mostly a blessing because it was, informing me. And I feel like I was informing whatever I was, my grief was informing my work. And it was kind of a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was the thing that separates it from other projects that I've done before, which are, it's just the work, and here it was the work and life kind of
Yeah.
coming together.
Wow. Um, well, first of all, I'm very sorry to hear
Yeah.
that. But I see you saying that makes me think of like, um, forgive me if I get weepy after um, just
Oh,
like how healing art can be,
this is exactly
you
it.
know?
This is exactly it. And so, and community,
Yeah,
because that
and
was that
community.
was also it. Yeah.
Yeah,
That I felt so cared for by my film family, um that I could process it,
right. And
and
you were safe with them to process
yeah,
with them.
yeah, which, it's not, working on movies is hard and you're away from home and
I
um
was about to say, "Do you have a Kleenex? I'll pass you one."
oh, I love this. um and actually what was so special about this movie was that Chloe surrounded herself with people who were first and foremost working from here.
Yeah.
And this goes for everyone. It's Łukasz Żal, our DP, it's Fiona, our production designer, it's Nicole, our hair and makeup designer. It was all people who were feelings to the front,
Yeah,
front
yeah,
feeling. I don't know if there's such a word, but I want there to be one.
yeah.
Um, and so there was such such care and such love, but also we were all allowed to express ourselves, and like there was space for our feelings. And Fiona and I had these weekly little we were in touch constantly and seeing each other constantly, but every Friday we would sit down together, sit in mostly my office on the floor, and just like, how are you? How are you feeling? How are you coping? Just like doing little, just a human moment that had nothing to do with the movie necessarily, but
Mm.
kind of made sure that we were, in one place emotionally, that we were safe, that we were, it was so special. And I see it when I watch the movie. I see that collaboration and those, the conversations and all that.
Yeah.
But it starts with Chloe. It starts with the people that she chose for it. And so yeah, there was a lot of crying on set and a lot of beautiful feelings.
Yes, that's so good, and again, just going back to that safe place where you felt like you could share emotions with each other and everybody felt
Yes.
like, you know, it's going to help the project, not hurt the
Yeah,
project,
exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, was there an unexpected pivot you had to make?
There there was a ton actually. It was, and I loved it. It was because Chloe was so viscerally connected to the material, and it kept growing. It kept kind of changing and shifting, and obviously within the body of the script,
Yeah.
but she this was a process. It never finished until the very, very end. And so she would record these little voice memos that she would send to me and Fiona and Nicole in the morning. And she would just be like, so I was thinking. And then this new idea would come. And, sometimes it was bigger things, sometimes it was smaller things, but she was always right. That was the most beautiful thing, that she was, this wasn't, she wasn't asking for things that were decorative or made things cooler, or it stemmed from the inside of the project, and it
Mm.
just like made it blossom more. And I remember the first, I don't know what the bit was, but I remember the first time she asked for something, for a little change, my team was like, "Ooh, is this going to be one of those? Is it?" And then we saw immediately that she was correct,
Yeah.
that it added depth and meaning, and that she was right. And so after that, it was like, okay, what can we do to make this happen? And so one of those, which I love, is the scene with the witches, kids dressing up as the witches. Uh,
Yes.
that was a super last minute ask. And Jessie actually didn't know about it. When she opened her eyes, this is the first, she didn't know what was going to happen. So it was a surprise for her.
Oh, that's
But
awesome.
it just was like hours to shoot. So I was running around the art department and the costume department, putting on various baskets and pots and pans on my head, being like, can this do? Will this do? And so it was fantastic because it was what the kids would have done, like they
Yeah.
would run around their house and find things. And so that was, I feel like this scene is within this largely sad emotional movie, this release and joy and fun. It's so needed, and I
Yeah.
cannot imagine the movie without it.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of little moments like that just like made it a little bit better. I know that the scene where Will is leaving for London after Hamnet's death,
Mhm.
and Agnes is peeling eggs.
Yes.
That was also an addition. So we had to, Chloe asked Fiona to get the eggs, which, it's like go and get eggs like from the store. But no, they had to have no little stamps, no,
Yeah, and
it's a full
hard-boiled and
process. Yeah. Um, but it just adds to me, it adds something because the previous time when we saw him leaving for London, when she's very, very pregnant, she was this giant egg. And they had this beautiful moment, like they couldn't separate, he was leaving 3 times and just kept coming back. And here it's the absolute opposite of that scene. And then she has these eggs in front of her. So it just like the parallel of it was perfect to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that is beautiful. In the future, as you reflect on making this film, what memory or memories do you think will come to mind?
The collaboration. I honestly think that was the most beautiful thing with Chloe, with Fiona. That was and my amazing team. It was just so much fun despite the terribly a terrible emotional load of the movie. We had fun and we made these costumes with such love. My team were truly just unbelievable people, and all of them were there for the right reason.
Mm,
They all loved the script. They all like were deeply um emotionally connected to the story. But even the Globe players, for example, this was kind of a cherry on top on top of the cake, because we were doing the Globe at the very, very end. So we were fitting the background performers all throughout the prep and shoot. And then as we finished building all the other costumes, we switched to the Globe, and it felt like doing a school play almost, because it was such a shift, different,
yeah,
just a different technique, different vibe.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, it was just so much fun. It just felt like, yeah, it was my favorite project, absolutely hands down my favorite project. And I remember everything with fondness.
Oh, that's so great. Okay, I have a few deep dive questions for you
Mhm.
as we get close to the end of the show here. What personal qualities or strengths have been most crucial to your success in a high pressure collaborative world of production? Your personal qualities or
Yeah.
strengths that have been crucial?
I am tireless. I will work until I drop, which is both a good and a bad thing. But I just want to make sure it looks, if I am doing it, then I want it done right. And so if it's on me, I don't want my team to be working beyond the hours that they need to be working, but I just want to make sure that things are as they should
Mm,
be, that I'm proud of them.
yeah.
Um, and I am trying to find the line of where is too much, where is the unhealthy, and where is just the like um conviction.
Yeah.
There's a fine line. So I'm trying to find that border, but yes, if it needs to get done, I will get it done. And also imagination and curiosity.
Mm,
I think, and also I do believe I'm very collaborative. I want, I want
yeah.
to exchange ideas, and um I don't think I have an ego in terms of like, oh, this is what it should be. And therefore you have to change the color of the walls because the dress is this or that color. I I like collaborating with someone and understanding their choices and knowing that we're working in
Mhm.
tandem. And and from that, I think the best things come out, because then you get to decide the vision, the what goes actually in front of the camera. You have bigger control of it. And it's just so much more fun when you're doing it together. But I think imagination and creativity and the hard-headedness a little bit.
I can hear in your stories today, I can hear all of those qualities from you. I can hear that childlike play, the inspiration, finding the creativity, collaboration. I can hear all of that in your stories. Um,
It is the best job, It is ultimately we get to research things and then play dress up. It's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Okay, as a final piece of advice, what's a myth about working in this industry that you would love to bust for our listeners?
That's a really interesting one. Mm, I think there's still a stigma attached to costume designers, that we do kind of a decoration that goes on top of a character.
Mm,
We mm, I don't know if it's, obviously there's different people, but costume designers work for the story, for the character, from the inside out, building the story in a way that makes it accessible to the viewer, and they, within the first 5 minutes, they know who the person is
Mm.
looking at them. Um, and I would love for us as designers to be included in the process of filmmaking earlier on, because we have a lot to bring. We don't just put things on top. We like
Yeah.
go from the inside out. I think that's my biggest one.
Yeah.
And that it's glamorous in any way. It is absolutely not glamorous. Yeah, it is.
It's
Yes, sweat
hard
and blood
work.
and dirt and tears. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. That was a really good one to share. Thank you so much. Okay. So to end the show, I like doing a little
Mhm.
rapid fire. Hopefully just some quick answers come to mind, but it's fine if you need to think for a moment. Is there any place you have been that you suggest others visit? It can be a country, it can be a city, it can be a museum, anything.
That's a hard one, because I love traveling and I love connecting with the culture in every place. But the first thing that came to mind, so I'll go with that.
Okay.
Um, I love working in New Mexico. I feel like it's a very magical place. And there is a desert there where there's a place called Piedras Marcadas, the painted rocks.
Oh,
And
yeah.
there are handprints from the Pueblo people from centuries and centuries ago. And you can touch someone from across the ages, and it is just a handprint. There's no grand shapes nor anything. It's just this human touch.
Oh,
And it's
wow.
just like, I felt like I was transported by seeing and touching these rocks. I felt like I was able to touch history and ancestry, and just, just a very, very beautiful human connection. So I'm gonna go with that one.
That's good. Maybe time travel is a little more simple than we thought it was.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
What genre do you hope to design for one day?
Sci-fi. I would love to try sci-fi because I have no idea what I would do. It's scary. And so that's yes, I would love to try that.
That's good. And is there a movie you enjoy watching multiple times?
Oh, I have many, many ones like that. I love Being John Malkovich is I keep returning to over and over again, but I also love
Really? Oh, that's so
Amelie. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's such a
So
quirky film, which makes sense, that, with all the people that were behind that film. It's like, yeah, that makes
yeah,
sense. That's
yeah.
cool.
I think my three that I return to over and over again is Amelie, Being John Malkovich, and Eternal Sunshine.
Oh,
I
nice.
just Yeah, I love those movies.
Great. Those are great ones. Okay,
Yeah.
and do you have anything next? What's next for you, or are you gonna
We shall
sabbatical
see.
this?
Don't know. Yeah, we'll see what will come. It's
Okay.
very hard to follow a project like this because it was so emotionally
Mhm.
fulfilling, that I'm waiting for something that will kind of fill these large boots.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, there's probably a bit of mourning that happens when you finish a project you really enjoy.
Totally. Yeah. There's like, it's uh, yeah, I remember the first time it happened to me when I finished the project. It was back in school, and when I was doing a dance piece in Prague. And right after watching the dance piece happen, I just sat down and I was like, oh, what now? Like, I had
Mhm.
this mission in life and now it's accomplished. So what now?
What's
And
next?
that happens every single time. And so that's when those movies come into play, to just like
Yes.
center again,
You
and
throw on Being John Malkovich.
yeah, exactly, and start from scratch.
That's right. Well, Malgosia, thank you so much for being on the show today. Please come on again with your next project. We'd love to have you
Anytime.
again. And this time was really special. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the shared
Mhm.
tissue moment. That
Yeah.
was I really, really appreciate you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. All right. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.